Imagine pulling over to the side of the road to wake up the next day in a hospital and your life being changed forever. Well, that is the story of my next guest, a courageous woman who selflessly saved the lives of two young girls. And it cost an unimaginable cost for her. This is a woman who has went from life-threatening injuries to getting on stages to inspire and teach a story of resilience. Today, we talk to her about a remarkable story with the hopes that it inspires you in your adversity, teaches you the courage of perseverance, and that there is purpose with pain. Right after this. One day, Jamie Blanek was wearing the crown as Miss Waco, shining on the pageant stage. And the next, she was fighting for her life. In 2021, Jamie's life changed forever in an instant. She went from being a successful business owner and beauty queen to facing a permanent physical disability and a grueling road to recovery. But Jamie's story did not end there. She knew God had bigger plans for her life. Today, she is a testament to resilience, turning pain into purpose, and inspiring others to rise above their challenges. Please help me welcome the resilient, the remarkable Jamie Blanek. Welcome back to another episode of the Lorraine Lindsay podcast. We are all about mindset here, where if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. And this season, the conversations are about healing, resilience, perseverance, having deep, in-depth conversations with my guests so they can inspire you the way that they've inspired the people that they work with. And today, I am so blessed to have Jamie here to talk to us about her story, what has happened, and what she's doing now as a result of her life-changing experience. Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We met, what has been a year now, I think, at an event, and you were there telling your story, and I was completely blown away by, number one, your beauty. That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, God, she's so pretty. And then your story, the way you told the story, the way you brought it like down to earth to say, okay, this is this thing that has happened to me, but let me talk to you all about your thing in your life. And so I want to begin first by you actually telling your story. And I know you've shared it many, many times, but for my audience out here, if you can say basically what happened, tell us your story.
Yes. Well, again, thank you for talking with me finally.
I know.
I am obsessed with you, so.
Likewise.
Oh my gosh. Perfect. So I'm from Texas. We love that. And I grew up in a family business, and I loved theater. My life was like singing, acting, dancing. I wanted to win an Oscar one day. Like, that was my dream. So I went to performing arts school in New York City, and that's actually a lot harder to do than I thought. So I came back home and I got involved with our family business, and I was managing it. I was in beauty pageants. I was Miss Waco. And then in February of 2021, right after the end of the pandemic, life was like starting to be normal again. And on the 6th of February, I had been with my family at my brother's house, and I left. My dad left before me, and then I left, and my mom was right behind me, and we were headed home, and we take this back country highway to get there, and I have no memory of this next part, but I've been told all of this. I either saw the end of an accident or I came upon it right after, and I pulled over and I jumped out of my car, and I went to this Jeep that had hit a car that pulled out in front of it, and it rolled several times. I got to the Jeep, and in the back of the Jeep, there were two small girls. They were probably 2 years old and maybe 4 or 5, and they were screaming and crying. One of them was already out of her car seat, and the other one was starting to get out of her car seat. And I was just trying to calm them down, check them out, make sure they weren't bleeding, that I didn't see like any urgent medical issues. And I don't have like much experience with kids and car seats, but something in me said the safest place for them is in their car seats. And I now know that was God telling me, because that's not knowledge that I would have otherwise. And so I was telling them, you need to get in your car seats, get in your car seats. And so I was putting them back in the car seats. Well, I moved around the vehicle, and as I did that, a car came down the highway and crashed into us. They came from the back and they hit the Jeep, and I was in front of the Jeep, and so they hit the Jeep and the Jeep hit me.
Wow.
Yeah. I was hit so hard that I suffered a traumatic amputation of my right leg, shattered my left leg, broke my pelvis. I had a skull fracture, multiple hematomas, so my brain was bleeding. It was bad.
Yeah. And I had asked you off camera if you were in a coma for a period of time. You said no. By the next day, you woke up.
Yeah. So I've learned through putting all the pieces together, I was actually alert and conscious the whole time from when I was laying on the highway bleeding out. I was very argumentative with everyone because I didn't know what had happened to me.
Right.
I thought I was fine and I wanted the girls to get helped. My mom, who I said was behind me, she saw the whole accident and
which was probably horrifying for her. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
It was truly.
Yeah.
But she, rose to the occasion and God equipped her to handle that situation. But yes, I did give her like the nightmare that parents don't want.
Right.
But she told me I was awake, and that's what they were trying to do, was keep me alert so that I didn't go into shock. I was alert in the ambulance. When the ambulance got there, one of the detectives came in and he was talking to me, and I was like arguing with him, and he was like, okay. And then they were going to put me in the helicopter because I needed to get to a hospital. Little known fact, ambulances don't carry blood.
Right.
And I needed blood.
So I was an EMT for 10 years.
Yeah.
So we used to have a blood Y kit where we could get the IV set up. And that was years ago. I don't even think they do that any longer. But no, we do not carry blood at all. So it's when it's trauma, it's flight or fight. I mean, you have to load and go is what we used to call it.
Yeah.
Get them to the nearest facility because the only thing that's going to save them is blood and operation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to be driven to a hospital. So they were going to put me in a life flight, and I wouldn't let them. I was arguing with them.
Do you remember this part of it?
Kind of. I have like little bits that come to me.
Okay.
But I remember I said that I wasn't going to go because I didn't want my mom to be left alone.
Wow.
And she was like, it's okay, Jamie, like there's people here, which I didn't know this, but she had called my brother. And so my whole family had come there. And so she was not alone, but I didn't know that.
Right.
And so they loaded me on the helicopter, which I was awake for that whole thing. I don't remember any of that. The pilots stayed after they dropped me off at the hospital until my family got there. And they told my family that I was the bravest person that they have ever flown. So I have no clue what I was saying there. And then I later found out that I was still talking in the ER. They were trying to give me a COVID test, and I was refusing the COVID test. And then I was still talking when they rolled me into the operating room.
And I mean, I'm assuming with the type of injuries that you had that there was a significant amount of blood loss.
Oh, 100%. I was definitely moments away from death. Right.
Because I know like in when I was a EMT, when someone was having hypovolemic shock, right, is what we called it, when there's significant blood loss, they become hypoxic. So they're losing oxygen. And when that happens, people can become, I've had patients get really combative or they want to fight you, but it's just simply, I mean, they're literally losing blood and oxygen. And so their brain just goes into this fight mode, you know?
Yes. And I think it stays in that for a while. But I know I was given many units of blood for the next few days.
Wow.
I definitely lost all of my blood and then was given
some.
more. Yeah, it was definitely, I was bleeding out in several places. My leg, my head, my femur was broken, and my pelvis. So I'm bleeding out everywhere.
I can't even imagine. So you wake up, when you wake up enough to remember, what was like the first thing that went through your mind, or what were you thinking when you understood the significance of your injuries?
I think I was in denial, honestly, because when you lose a limb traumatically like I did, there's this phenomenon called phantom pains,
Right.
and I still felt my leg. And so I had everyone telling me, you've lost your leg. My surgeon was telling me, and I just didn't comprehend it because I could still feel it.
Wow.
So I think that in some weird way kind of protected me. And I also I refused to look down.
You just didn't want to see
Would
it.
not look down. Yes, because when I first was waking up and looked down at one point, my left leg, they had stabilized it with like the halo thing. Yeah. So that was on there, which is a lot of like, that's a lot on your leg. And I've never ever seen that before. And so I saw like just a little bit and I was like, nope, I'm done looking down. So I didn't look. I was like avoiding it.
Right.
And so I just kind of put it in the like back of my mind and only thought about, okay, let's figure out how I'm going to get back to Jamie and how I can get back to my life. And that's what I focused on.
Gotcha.
Which helped me.
Now, when you lost your leg, was that something that the surgeon just made a decision on, or was there a conversation about what was going to happen? Did you know that you were that they were going to take your leg before, or did you just kind of wake up and it was gone?
I woke up and it was gone. I literally was hit so hard that it was severed from my body.
Wow.
And my leg, like a detective brought it in to the hospital like 45 minutes after I arrived to the hospital. So it was not, there was no
They couldn't
decision.
salvage, yeah.
Yeah. I know that like there was a little bit of my knee kind of left, but not really. My surgeon was like, no, it wasn't happening. So the next step that they focus on is where they can like make a good cut, I guess, and then sew it back together so that I can wear a prosthesis and I have enough room, and there's like all kinds of nuances about that.
go with that, yeah. So I want to tap into the emotional part of this, right? Because when I see you, when I've met you, the way that you are, your personality, the way you share your story, you wouldn't think that there was a period of time where there was depression or sadness or even feeling sorry for yourself or anything like that. Did you kind of go through the motions? Did you have to go through an experience of loss and mourning to say, okay, this literally the day before I was this person and now I'm this? What was the emotional kind of roller coaster that you went through during that time?
I think I have felt like every emotion possible in this journey. I was always a very positive, happy person in general. But in the beginning, I didn't have memory of what had happened. And therefore I didn't know.
Did that bother you?
Yes. And I thought it was my fault. And so I didn't want to ask. Like, my mom was with me throughout the whole thing. Like, she was literally sleeping in my hospital room. And I just didn't want to ask what had happened because I didn't want her to tell me that I had done something and that it was my fault. But probably the second week in the hospital, I had a dream, and I think it was a memory that God gave me of me talking to these two girls and telling them it's going to be okay. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't really dream about things like this.
Right. Because at this point, you had forgotten completely about even the kids.
I knew nothing.
Wow.
I knew nothing.
Okay.
I didn't even know that it was a car accident. I literally knew nothing.
Wow.
Because I was going in and out of so many surgeries, and I would be asleep or sedated, and I just didn't have.
I mean, you had a head injury as well.
And yes, and I think that's a big part of it. I also think God took the memories of that away, made sure that I didn't have them because it was horrible.
It's too traumatizing.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
So I finally asked my mom, I was like, hey, Mom, I had this memory. Can you tell me if that is what happened? And so I told her, and she said, yes, Jamie, that's what happened. And I said, oh, so was this my fault? And she said, no, you did everything right. And so having the knowledge that what I did saved those two girls.
And at what point did you discover that the little girls had survived?
When I asked her that, I said, how are they? And she said, they're doing fine.
Wow.
Yes.
Did they suffer any injuries at all?
They had bruises, and that was it.
And then what about who was driving the car with the kids?
So it was their mom's boyfriend.
Okay.
And he was driving. It was his Jeep Wrangler. And they all only suffered bruises, minor things, because the girls were in their car seats. That's why.
You saved them.
Yes.
You literally saved them.
Yeah.
At an unimaginable cost, but you saved their lives.
Yeah.
For you, was there ever moments of being angry about what happened? Like, why weren't they paying attention? How could they have not seen? I mean, did you kind of go through that barrage of things in your mind? And how did you overcome that? And the reason why I'm saying this is because obviously you're triumphant in what has happened, but it's still tragic, right? And as resilient as you are, there is still something that was tragic that came of that, unfortunately. And so I know for some people, whether their story's grandiose and tragic as well, or even small things, sometimes we get through that phase of just being really angry about what's happened, questioning God, questioning why me, why this time. Did you go through a period like that for yourself?
I never, ever questioned God. Because of all the details of my accident and the fact that the other person who stopped from the other side, his name is Scott. He happens to be a paramedic. He was off duty. So he had the training to save my life. And it was just so many little things that I could see that God was in the story, which gave me comfort and let me know that he chose me for this. And why would I be mad about such a massive plan that he had for me?
Right.
For me to question him or for me to doubt it would be a disservice to myself because I lost a lot.
Yeah.
And if I don't have faith in his plan and the purpose for my life, then you're going to spiral.
Yeah. Then what do you have?
Right.
Yeah.
You can. And I had every right to lay in the hospital bed and feel sorry for myself. I did.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this was easy. It was extremely painful, and I'm not going to grow my leg back. Like, this is my life forever. And I know that the struggle is real, but the purpose is greater.
Right.
And I'm okay with losing my leg because these two girls are alive.
Right.
But also I get to be a testimony to the world that you can go through something very traumatic and suffer loss and still have a beautiful, meaningful, fulfilling life on the other side. Mm-hmm. I would say like anger is something that I am good at.
Good at as far as
like
because I'm good at anger, but
yes.
It might have a different meaning. At managing it, maybe.
It doesn't consume me.
Okay.
I can have like a moment of it, and it doesn't
ruminate and stick.
Right. Like I have it and I've moved on, you know? So there are moments where I have been angry about something, and if this wasn't my life, then I wouldn't have been in this position and I wouldn't be angry, you know?
Right,
but like,
right.
I think it's okay to get your emotions out. Otherwise it's just going to fester.
Right.
And I know that's where it gets bad, is if I don't get it out.
Right.
So angry at God, no. Angry that the world is not accessible and that sometimes they do not care that you're disabled.
Right.
The fact that I have such a hard time getting what I need, like I can't get the actual leg that I need because of insurance telling me, no, you don't need it. You can't have that. Like, why? I lost an actual part of my body,
right.
And I'm not asking for you to give me like a mansion on the beach. I'm asking for a leg.
Right.
And I need that.
That's frustrating.
And you're telling me no. So those are where the moments of anger come in. But that just tells me like I have a lot of work to do to help change.
So where do you think that came from? I mean, do you feel like, because that's something that's in you that way. It probably was that way before this even happened to you, that you have this kind of innate thing on how you emotionally regulate yourself. Where do you think you draw your strength from with that? And if people were listening to whatever their thing is in their life that they're looking to kind of overcome, what would you say to them that would be something to say, this is how I'm doing it, this is how I check in, this is how I emotionally regulate the thing that happened? Because I always say to people, there is what has happened in your life, and then there's the meaning you attach to it. There is the story that you give to it, and that's what kind of keeps it alive, good, bad, or indifferent. So what is that for you?
I was raised to be independent. I was raised in a very safe environment where I could be myself, and I've always known who Jamie was. I've always had a very strong sense of self and never had to question like my worth and my value. And so my foundation was set. And so I think that definitely set me up for success in this part of life.
It was like you were prepared.
I definitely was, because like
I mean, and I say that, lightly, of course, because you could never really fully be prepared. But
right, I wasn't prepared to lose a leg, but I was prepared in how to navigate
emotionally. Yeah.
Yes, and with my theater background and my performance background, like I have no problem talking to people and telling stories, and now I'm sharing my story. So I think like everything that I did in my life before set me up to handle this. But when it comes down to the emotional part and like the reason why I have grounded myself with gratitude, I know that there's a lot you can focus on in life that is negative, that's bad,
right,
that is painful, that somebody did something to you or whatever. But if you focus on that, you're missing all of the
Everything
good.
else.
You're missing all the beautiful things. You're missing all the happy moments. You're missing all of the God winks. You're missing everything that is the good that you should be focusing on. And so with gratitude, it's a practice. In the beginning, early on, probably like the second week of my accident, I remember I was laying in my hospital bed and I was thinking about this, trying to like process, and this thought came to me, and it was, this could be so much worse. I could be paralyzed. I can't believe I'm not paralyzed. How did I not break my back? I was hit by a car going 70 miles an hour. Like, how did I not have any internal organ damage? And my spine, like how that's crazy. And so I was like,
Was that little epiphany for you then, in that moment of like, wow, this gratitude, shifting the focus?
yes, like that one moment, that one thought, which now I am like, okay, even if I was paralyzed, I would be fine, because I have lots of friends who are paralyzed and in wheelchairs and doing amazing things. But in that moment, I was like, oh, wow, okay, this isn't so bad. Like, I can still move. I still have the ability to walk. Okay. And that little thing, that one thought, is what shifted me into a gratitude mindset.
Okay.
So then I was able to start actively being thankful and saying, okay, thank you, God, for not making me a quadriplegic. Thank you, God, for this and that. And I did it every day. And I started like 3 things a day of gratitude. So I would list.
And now, did someone give you some guidance in that, or was it just something that kind of like you came to your own with that? Was there ever a moment, before we get to that question, was there ever a moment of hopelessness? Did you ever feel hopeless, like about your life moving forward?
No.
That's really incredible.
It is. The second day in the ICU, after I woke up, my surgeon came in to talk to me about the next surgeries that we were going into. They were going to remove the X-Fix, and they were going to like finish cleaning out my limb. And I was like, I don't care about any of that. I don't want to hear about any of that. I just need you to know that I am an athlete. I'm in the gym 2 to 3 hours a day. I'm a dancer.
When you say I need you to know, who are you telling this to?
My surgeon. my trauma orthopedic surgeon.
Like, let me tell you who I am.
That's what I did.
So you don't forget. I love it. Okay.
Yes. I wanted him to know who he was about to be operating on, because I'm a complete stranger, right? Like, I'm a patient, whatever.
Right.
So
I love this.
I wanted him to know me, because I don't know him. And I wanted to convey that I needed to be like in tip-top shape for the life that I have.
Right.
I said I can't live my life in a wheelchair. I want to do this and I want to do that. And I told him, I said, I'm a snowboarder. And my mom, who was in the room, she was like, what? She just thought I was really high on the drugs. And that's why I said that, because I have snowboarded before, like one time.
But you were like, I'm next level now.
Literally.
I'm going to be unstoppable.
Yeah.
I want to pause right there real quick, because I think this is very important what you're saying. And I'm going to circle back to what you had said earlier, is understanding your worth, right? And I can tell you the countless amount of people I've talked to while coaching them. And one of the things that I find consistent with whatever their obstacles and their hurdles are in their life is that they feel unworthy.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a physical injury here, but the perseverance came from a woman who understood her worth and how incredibly valuable that is. And to say, this is a surgeon who doesn't know me, but I know me. And so let me tell him who I am. And I think that that's a beautiful message for people out there, to really say, who are you in the thing? Whatever it is that you're going through, check in and know who you are. Be reminded of your worth, so that way when you step into life and you face it, like you were, I'm facing this surgery, but I need this doctor to know who I am. So when I wake up, I can show up as self. And I think that is really, really remarkable that you just have that kind of spirit about you, because most people don't, let alone having sustained such injuries. Just in normal life, in emotional injury, people don't have that level of tenacity for self. So I think that I really admire that about you quite a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what does perseverance mean to you now? How have you defined, or how has your definition of strength changed since the accident?
Oh, wow. I think I've been shown that I'm a lot more capable than I ever thought, because obviously nobody thinks about being hit by a car and losing a limb. Like, that's not a normal everyday thought.
Right.
And so I never thought I would need to level up this much, but now I know that I truly can do anything. And I'm not saying that I've done it alone. My faith obviously has been huge. And I'm glad that I grew up in a Christian home and I had that to lean on. But I've gained a community of people. I've seen who my real friends are. And I think there are times when I don't feel strong and I feel just weighed down by life. And I have chronic pain. I still deal with pain. And that can just be a lot. So on those moments, I lean on others who know what I'm going through. And I say that it's easier to carry the load with people when you share it. And so I'm very open about what I'm going through. And people might see that as being vulnerable or weak. And I don't see it as a weakness. If I'm open and honest and I am transparent, and if you know what's going on, that is a strength.
Right.
And if somebody can help, then they help. It's opened my eyes to a whole new world, a whole new perspective. What strong was before to me is totally different now. And I do know truly that you can be at rock bottom and put your life back together and be so much stronger than you were before.
I love that. I love that because, man, it's it makes me feel emotional, because I think about, I'm listening to things and I'm kind of putting them in order in my head. Number one, knowing yourself, right? Knowing your worth. Surrounding yourself with people that can help you when you're feeling a little helpless, when you're feeling a little down. So community, and the right community of people is important. Faith, having faith, saying, okay, I don't need to lean on my own understanding in this thing, but there is some greatness or something greater than myself as to why I have to go through this, and having faith and being able to lean into that. And I think that, again, with people listening, whatever it is that they're going through, to be reminded that they are so much stronger, that they are so well prepared, more than they believe, to overcome whatever battle that they're going through, because the battle is temporary. The decision that you make is what can make that permanent in your life. There's people who have horrific things happen and they make permanent decisions for temporary issues. And so really checking in and knowing that you're so much stronger than you realize. And I love that that's where you're drawing strength from, you know, which is really incredible. I now have a couple other questions before we conclude. There's so much my brain starts to think all these questions, but just because it's remarkable. I just being around you, and the few times that you and I have been around, we've had lunch together and things like that, and the energy that you radiate. there is no looking. I don't look at Jamie and say, where's her leg? Because it's almost like none of it just doesn't. I don't know if I'm articulating right. It's just like none of that exists because of who you are and how you show up. That you just feel your energy, your soul, your spirit, you're captivating with regardless of what has happened to you.
Well, thank you.
And now that I'm hearing you and talking to you and getting a little bit deeper, it's everything that you're saying about knowing who you were and still knowing who you are, even if you have to recreate versions of yourself, right?
Oh yeah. I think what I have to tell people who ask me, I get asked all the time, like, how do I become positive like you? How do you do that? And for me, I say I'm positive because I'm alive. I could be dead. I should be dead. Medically, if you looked at any of my charts at any time, you'd be like, oh yeah, this patient is deceased. But I'm not, because God came in, right? But I tell people that you have to be grateful that you're alive, and you have to know what the trauma is that you've been dealing with, that you've been carrying, and you have to deal with that trauma, handle it, sort it out. Don't lead with that trauma. That's not who you are.
Right.
Because I'm not an amputee. I am medically, but like that's not what I don't.
That's not
lead
your identity.
With that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not like, hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an amputee. I lost my leg. Blah blah blah. No, I don't do that. And some people will lead with the horrible thing that happened to them that they can't get over. You have to get over that.
Right.
I say that Jamie, before February 6, 2021, that Jamie who had hopes and dreams and a life, she died. She died right there on the highway. She bled out. She's gone. And I was able to mourn her, let her go. And now I'm this Jamie, post February 6, 2021, who is living her purpose, who has like done things that she never thought she was going to do. I'm a professional athlete. I'm a Paralympic snowboarder. I travel the world competing. I never, ever thought that would be my life, right? One drug-induced comment that I made about snowboarding, and like, here I am. But I went with it, right? Because I'm trying to see where my limit is. Like, where's that line where that's too much? And I have not found that limit. And I'm going to keep chasing that friggin' line until I find it. But I want people to be empowered by the fact that if you can just like let that trauma go, if you can not focus on that, if you can shift your focus to the good, you can do anything you want to do too. Like, you probably don't want to be an athlete or the crazy things I do, but maybe you just want to be like at peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really the goal.
You're right. Man, that's so good, because sometimes it's just as simple as that. It's like, where am I today? Where do I need to leave her or him or whoever's listening? Who do I get to be once I let that go? Okay, I made this bad decision. Maybe this relationship was bad. Maybe I lost that job. Maybe I feel like my life is in shambles. Maybe I'm bankrupt, divorce, alone, whatever it is, fill in the blank. But I can stay in that and keep that, or I can leave it on the highway, so to speak, and say, let it bleed out. Let it be done. Let me leave it there. But who do I get to step into now? And there is a recovery with that. It takes time to rehabilitate yourself. It takes time to rediscover who you are. And we're talking about your story. Literally, you had to do those things. But emotionally and spiritually, sometimes that has to be done as well, right? And so, but on the other end of that, when you have that gratitude, when you have that faith, you can be that much more stronger. So that way you can really embrace and love the newer version, right? And be limitless in that. That's the cool, that's the thing. If we're still here, still living life, still breathing, we can be limitless in what we feel in our spirit to do, And I think that's really cool. If you could go back to that day, knowing what you know now, would you have still stopped to help?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I did it before. Like, I've pulled over to rescue a dog, I've done that. I have stopped at accidents before. Obviously, I didn't know how dangerous it could be, but I now know. But I am a person who will run into the fire if I have to. That's just who I am. And not everyone is like that, and that's okay. But yes, and I since then have stopped.
Have you?
I have, yes, I have.
That's very brave.
I have, and I made sure that people were around to make sure that the traffic knew that there was an accident.
So you're taking extra precautions.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
So let's close with this, Jamie. What message for people out there or lesson do you hope that people can take away from your story? Because I know you're now speaking nationally on stages. You're sharing your story. You're a speaker on panels and very inspirational to a lot of people. But for the people that are listening, for the audience out there right now, what would the message be?
Wow. I just want people to remember that it's just a bad moment. It's not a bad life. And you have everything in you that you need to make the choice that will change your life. The gratitude practice is imperative, and you can never give up hope.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh my gosh.
I appreciate you so much. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yes.
I can't wait to come to Texas to see you.
Yes.
How can people find you, follow you, let them know where you are, and so they can be continued in their inspiration from you?
Oh my gosh. So I have a website, and I'm going to list all the things. It's all the same. So I have a website, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and they're all my name, Jamie Blanek. So JamieBlanek. That's me.
Perfect.
So,
And I will make sure to put all of her information in the bottom of the bio of this video. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you are just as inspired as I am. Remember that, like she said, the moments are not moments. They're just moments. They're not moments for your life, right? Something to that fact. But I just, I'm like trying to say it. It was so good. But just remember, whatever is happening in your life, it's temporary. You are stronger. You are resilient. You will persevere. Do not give up. Be inspired. And until next time, ciao.